So what I'll do is introduce Jamie. Jamie's the chair of the security stream at GSE, mainframe security consultant, and he's valiantly stepped in to fill this empty lunch and learn slot that we've got going on today to talk about zero trust on your home network. So I think what we'll do, if that's okay with you, Jamie, is if there are any questions that people can either tap them into the chat, or are you happy for them to click on raise a hand and then we can unmute them to ask the question?
Absolutely, yeah. If you wouldn't mind being my eyes and ears there, that would be great.
I will do that.
Marcus.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jamie. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So yeah, apologies for the, if you were looking at the agenda earlier on, so I see a to be confirmed in GSE in our little WhatsApp group, we were panicking a little bit thinking who's going to fill that slot, and no one came forward, and so we're not sure what's happened there. But anyway, I am the as Marcus said, the filler for that session today. And just a kind of heads up that this session I'm presenting I actually gave at the GSE security working group in our June meeting, so this is a repeat of that, and I've literally just pulled it out of the filing cabinet with the dust still on it, and we'll present it as it was in June. So don't use the QR code there, because that will take you to our GSE UK Security Working Group website. But for the purpose of feedback, I'm sure Marcus will tell you that the session code, etc. at the end. So anyway, let's get straight into it. So today we're going to talk about home network security. So nothing to do with mainframes, nothing to do with work. This is about a personal thing for you at home, what you can do to actually improve your home network security. And a little disclaimer here, like Resley said in her session yesterday, you can't sue me. This is my kind of warranty for the tips that the information that I'm giving you here, that I'm not going to, it's not a warranty for a secure home network, and anything that's connected to it. Just it's basically I put these things together from personal experience, because I'm kind of turned into this geek around gadgets of IoT devices and doing networking and stuff at home. So it's kind of all self-taught. So I'm just trying to share my sort of what I think are best practices for a sort of a good home network security setup, and basically the opinions are my own, not of GSE and anybody else that I represent. So I hope you enjoy it and take some things from it. So a question I've got for you is around this trust. So we've heard, if you've been in the security sessions, a lot about zero trust and how enterprises are moving towards this model of zero trust, which is basically just don't trust. You have to validate and verify things before they actually come onto the network, onto your corporate network, and it could be users, it could be devices, whatever it is. So I want you to kind of think about that, about this trust at home, and think about when the doorbell rings, and it's probably for many of you going to be like a smart doorbell, and you answer the door, and you might not know them, so would you let that stranger into your home, someone you've never met before, or somebody from a company? No, probably not. But then if you purchase a device, a smart device that you can connect to the internet, whether that's plugging in an Ethernet cable or hooking it up to your home Wi-Fi, would you question it? Would you do any verification beforehand? Probably not. Picture yourself, Amazon turns up, or John Lewis, whatever it happens to be, with your package. You're so excited, you rip it open, you want to get the thing set up, you connect it to your network, and you don't think anything more about it. You get it set up, get it running, and that's the end of it. And we don't give it a second thought. And I bet most of you, hand on your heart, are like that. So what is zero trust? So like I said, we've heard a lot about this in the security stream over the last 2 days, but essentially think of it as you validate before you allow something to come onto your network. So you're not just going to grant access to something or services. You've got to do some checking, whatever checks you need to do before you specifically give that access. And it really, this concept here of zero trust, you know, applies to anything you're going to hook up to your network when all is said and done. And it could be, you know, a laptop, you know, smart device, mobile device, printer, whatever. You know, it's something that's, you know, that you can connect. So it's got an IP address. And the point is that you verify before you actually allow it onto your network. And it's kind of going back to what I was saying about at the beginning about the front doorbell goes and not letting strangers into your home. You know, you probably do some checking, you know, no different to if you're going to access a building or something, you do some vetting or something before that person is allowed, you know, in. And the same we should apply to our you know, our things that are connecting to our home network. And the interesting thing is that, like it or not, if you're not a security person, you're now the Chief Information Security Officer for your household. Whether it's just you or you've got family living with you or friends, you know, you're the CISO now. And we are now in a position where, and we've done this for hundreds of years, about, you know, safety in our home or our castle, whatever it happens to be, and probably safety measures in the physical context, like IT. But now we have to think about, with this explosion of, you know, the internet and things that connect to our home network, we have to make security decisions. And this is why I'm kind of saying to all of you now, you are now the Chief Information Security Officer for your household. But the interesting thing is that with a CISO role, if you've ever done that, it comes with great responsibility. And we are a society of plug and play. We, you know, that scenario I was giving you, where the delivery driver turns up with your internet connected device, you're probably not going to question that. You're just going to rip it open and just, you know, get it set up, connect it up, and that's it. So we've kind of been lulled into this, like, we're favoring all this like convenience, getting it set up, you know, going through whizzes and things, but not really thinking about the security implications of connecting that device or devices to your home network. And think about today, the traffic that is traversing through your home network, the sensitive information that's flowing through, whether you're doing online banking, you know, any type of financial transaction. It could be that, you know, you've got, you know, user IDs, usernames, email addresses, passwords. All that kind of data is traversing, you know, through your network. So highly sensitive, you know, valuable information. And this has been drummed into us over years in sort of like, you know, in the corporates that we work for, about, you know, locking down things and sensitive information that's in the organization. And the same applies in our home, that when all is said and done. And I bet if you looked at your kind of internet stats, you'd be shocked actually the amount of data that you're consuming every, you know, month, and how much of that is sensitive information. And so the reality is, folks, that, you know, with all of these smart devices, it really has, you know, exploded and has taken over our homes. And I wonder, the challenge that I would put to you is, how many devices, if you did a count now, how many internet connected devices do you have connected to your home right now? And I bet it's more than 20. So think about traditionally how we've thought about securing our home. And we've always kind of focused on, you know, like all the valuables that we have, you know, whether it's jewelry or, you know, televisions, whatever it is, high value things. At the end of the day, our homes contain a lot of valuables. But going back to what I was saying earlier on about your home network and the traffic, the valuable traffic, the sensitive traffic that's traversing through it, your home network is, you know, handling a lot of valuable information. And my challenge to you is that, you know, with your home, you've probably got security, you know, physical security stuff. You've got security features in place, whether it's a burglar alarm, locks on doors and windows. I hope you have those, and probably cameras, and so on. But what do you have, you know, on your home network, and then the devices that are connected to it to make that secure as well? So there's the challenge. Remember that tone? So yeah, if we kind of look back, and I actually call them recent times, you know, back into the 90s, you know, that whole thankfully we no longer have to be subjected to that, but kind of we can reminisce, can't we? But it wasn't that long ago that our home network was very, very, very simple. A modem and a computer connected to it, and we were subjected to the whole dial-up procedure, and that was it. But now, if you fast forward into today's home, it's probably not uncommon for you to have most of these things connected to your home router. So, and sorry for our American friends that are in the room, but router, of course, for you, but we call it router over here. But it's probably not uncommon for you to have these things, whether it's an internet connected washing machine, cameras, voice over IP for telephony, laptops, radios, voice assistants, and so on. And that challenge that I put to you, if you do a count now, you are probably way in excess of 20 plus, internet connected devices. By the time you weigh in smart light bulbs, all those things, it adds up. Even like devices that are connected to a hub, maybe Zigbee devices, for example, it all counts to internet connected devices. And I have a confession to make. I'm actually nearly at 100 devices on my home network, and I have some servers running and IoT devices, and it kind of gave me some inspiration as I was setting this all up, thinking I'd like to really sort of share my experiences on what I think is some of the best practices. But the thing that I want you to think about is, and you've probably heard this in the news a lot about, these devices that are coming out, these internet connected devices, about there's security issues, vulnerabilities with them. So, some of these devices have been compromised because of poor controls, and then some of them have no security, and then they've hit the headlines. And it's this typical get it out there. They develop a product cheaply as possible, and basically security is at the back of people's minds. So you're putting stuff onto your home network where it's either running with no security or minimal amount of security, and basically, you might get some software updates initially if you're lucky with some of these devices, but what you will quickly notice is that updates going forward are lacking, and to the point where it could go 2 or 3 years and there's no more updates. And think about if that device has poor security, no patching, how it is exposing your network. And the frustrating thing about this is that when you hear about these stories about internet connected devices that have been hacked because the vendor has just not thought about the security that's needed, and certainly not any patching that's needed going forward, there's no comeback on them. It just happens, it hits the press. They might release an emergency patch for it, they might not, but it's always us as consumers that suffer from that. And yeah, as I say at the bottom, it's always the focus is on the function, the features, the wow factor of that device and what it can do for your home, whether it's automation, making your life a bit more convenient, when you want something on TV, but it's all about the user experience, rather than what's going on behind the scenes in terms of keeping you protected. But there's an interesting thing, I don't know if you read or heard recently with the opening of Parliament earlier this year, where the Queen did her speech, and I picked up on an interesting thing about product security and telecommunications infrastructure bill. So if you look into the detail of that, what it states is, and what the government are intending on, is that requiring manufacturers or importers and distributors to ensure that consumer connected products that are available to UK consumers, that's us, meet minimum security standards. It would also create powers to investigate cases of non-compliance and take steps to ensure compliance. So if they follow this through, if this comes into act, that is a big game changer for how vendors, when they launch these products, and I guess existing products, at the security that they actually apply to those, to make sure that we are protected as consumers. So it's very interesting. And if you look back sort of like at what's going on in the corporate world and all the regulatory requirements that are coming out to basically force organizations to do a better job at protecting their customers, This, I think, is a game changer for us as consumers for these internet connected devices in our homes. So let's get straight into it. So some tips for you now about sort of adding better protection for your home network. So I've been doing security now for a few years, and what's always drummed into you as a security professional is that security is not just kind of like one layer, it is several layers. The term was always called defense in depth. So it was about adding all different layers to make it harder for someone to break in. So it's no different to your home, right? You might have a burglar alarm, a couple of doors, locks and things. It's the same in the IT world. It's about building layers of controls to make the evil people, their life much more difficult. So think about this as a layered approach. And you can do the same at home as well. And what you need to keep in mind is that the more things that you do for security, the better your defenses are. And if you look at the little graphic down the bottom of the screen there, at the heart of it, what we're trying to protect, just like in the corporate world, is our data. So if you've got a computer at home with your personal data on, financial information, sensitive information, you're trying to guard against that. You don't want that stolen and made available to the evil person. So similar to the corporate world, you've got the network, you've got the computer running in your home, or the device, and then there's an application probably that you're using, but at the heart of it there's some data there. Or it could be data that is like your username and your password and your IP address, things like that you want to protect. But if there's one thing that I could ask all of you today, one thing to take away from this session, if you forget everything else that I've talked about, is before you buy something that can connect to the internet in your home, do some due diligence, do some what I call vetting of that product. And there's some really, really simple things that you can actually do before you buy that product. So you can do searches using your favorite search engine. So what I like to do is things like, I'll put in the device name into the search engine, and then security vulnerabilities, or firmware download, or hacking, those kind of keywords with the device name in, or the product that you're going to buy, and just see what comes up from those hits. And what I will tell you is, for some of them, you will be really, really surprised at what you find. For example, if you put in a smart device name and security vulnerabilities, hopefully you'll see press releases or some magazine or something that will tell you that, oh, this security exposure was unearthed and someone got hacked as a result of it. If you're trying to find out how well that device is supported in terms of software updates and firmware downloads that not only introduce functionality but introduce security improvements, if you look at, if you don't see many hits for that product, say for example the last firmware download available was from 2 years ago, alarm bells should start to ring that, like, okay, how well supported is this device? Are they, yeah, the functions and features are really, really nice, but what about the security updates for this? Because there should be sort of security patches periodically. There's new things come out, regardless of what the product is. So that's the one takeaway for today. Think about doing your sort of research before you buy with those keywords, and just see what comes up. And even for existing devices that you've got in your home, it's well worth periodically just checking to see what's out there. And if you do hit a story that talks about a big security exposure on these devices, go and check the vendor's website or the manufacturer's website, and to see if there are any downloads that you can actually apply to protect, to patch the product. Okay. Next recommendation is, I don't like the router equipment that ISPs supply. So if you sign up to a broadband provider here in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same for other countries, they will send you their router, their Wi-Fi router. And some of them, they look great. I mean, my dad had signed up, and I won't mention the name of a provider, and he said, oh, Jay, he went, this looks so aesthetically pleasing, this router. It blends in really well. It's got nice lights on it. And I was thinking, yeah, I wonder what the security is like behind these this router that he's got. So I'm not a fan of them, and I don't use my ISP's equipment. I've kind of gone down the sort of commercial route a bit, and we can talk about what I use as we go through. But the thing that you have to keep in mind with ISP supplied equipment is that it's for your convenience, of course, because it's a plug-in and play device, but it's also very much geared up towards their convenience as a provider, because if it's plug and play, that means that it's less support, for them to provide to the consumer. Probably with a plug and play, you probably won't have to call their support desk so frequently to get things configured and so on. So, but with that comes consequences, I think, around the security of these products. And some of you might not know, some of you may know that in providing that support, they have a backdoor mechanism often into the equipment that they're supplying you for management. So there's a management protocol typically running where they can remotely connect in. I remember years ago talking to my ISP, had a problem. He said, "Oh, hang on there a moment, Mr. Pease. Let me connect to your router and I will see what is going on there." And it was kind of like, this is not resting easy with me as a security person. This is my network here. So think about that. I think that a lot of them do a really poor job in keeping the firmware up to date, the software up to date on board these devices. And they're very, very poor, I think, in telling you, if they do launch a firmware update or a software update, exactly what they have fixed. They might be, tell you that there's this new feature in there or there's security fixes, but what were those security fixes? And we've heard lots of stories in the press around vulnerable equipment, stuff, or could be compromised because of lack of security patching and so on. And I've put a little clip in there from the register, which was from earlier this year, around some equipment that is for a lot of people living in the UK have got this equipment where there are security vulnerabilities in it. So ditch it, buy your own equipment. There's some very good consumer consumer routers that you can buy now that have some quite advanced features on board that are geared towards the commercial sector. For example, intrusion prevention system and the likes. But the point is, when you have ISP equipment, you don't have much control over it. If you want to, do more in terms of improving your home network security. So what I'm saying to you is invest in something decent. It doesn't have to cost the earth. You can go onto, your favorite retailer website and probably pick up a really decent, router firewall for £150 with some good security features on. Like I said, an intrusion prevention system that scans traffic, has web reputation services on board, VPN services, and so on. So it's not costing you the earth in switching, and you probably have a better experience, in my experience, through using your own equipment. And I know some of you on this call have kind of taken it a stage further and with networking and use other solutions like pfSense is very popular open source, firewall. There's OPNsense. I personally use Untangle. I absolutely love it because it's got some really cool security features in there. You can have it for free, like a lot of these solutions, but I pay a subscription because I want to use the security features that are on there, and then they're really good. And it's actually a really good insight into what's going on in your home network and where you are connecting to around the world, and who you're connecting to is the other important thing. If you do switch to your own equipment, what I will say is that you might have to switch like the existing equipment into bridge mode, so it's almost like a modem. But with the rollout of fibre to the premises here in the UK, they'll provide the ONT that you can connect to, and then you just plug in your own router. But if you're on like the old VDSL system, the cable system here in the UK, then you probably have to switch that equipment into modem mode before you can use your own. So do think about it. It's worth the investment, in my opinion. But what you should be asking yourself is what's actually, connecting to your home network. It's coming back to this sort of zero trust. Knowing what is connected is no different to like who is in your property. At the end of the day, you should know at all times, who is in your house if you're leaving doors open and things. And some of these routers that you can buy, certainly the one that I use, notifies me when something new connects to my network, and then I can accept it, like you would in a zero trust world. You make it part of your sort of trusted user base, as it were, that you know about that device and you're happy with it on your network. And you can also buy standalone scanners. I've put an example there. There's a little device called Thing. You can have it as an app, or you can buy it as a standalone device, and that will also keep track of what is connecting to your network. And also you can block it. So like with my firewall, I can set it, and I haven't done, but you can actually set it so if something new is connecting, you can say, no, I'm not allowing you on and until I trust you. So maybe I'm not, maybe I'm a bit more trustworthy than I should be, but hey, but it's something that you can think about. But keep a record of whatever you do, keep a record of things that are connecting to your network. It could be, like I said, DHCP reservations, or you've just got a spreadsheet or something that's got like a catalogue of things that you have authorized or approved to be on your home network. And like I said, the best practice here is if you don't trust it, block it. Okay, I put here, love your firewall. And the firewall, think about this as your first line of defense into your home network. Certainly routers, they have them on board. Even your ISP supplied equipment should, in most cases, have a firewall there that make sure that it is on. But equally, devices that are connecting to that router may have their own firewall. I mean, like if you've got a MacBook, if you've got a PC, if you've got a networked attached storage device connected to your home network, they've got a firewall. Think of that second line of defense. So if somebody got through the first line of defense, which the firewall sits on the router level, wouldn't it be good to have that second line of defense there blocking things that you don't want to get through, also on those devices? And again, it's like adding that layer of security. So if you've got a NAS, and I think some of you on this call will have one, make sure that that firewall is switched on and you block things, ports and things, traffic that you don't want to get through to it. Don't just leave it switched off. Even if you're testing, remember to switch it back on again, and just say you've got that extra layer of defense. In addition, are there certain countries that you don't trust? For example, would you allow any of your devices in your home network to phone home to a particular country, or any protocols and things you don't trust? Block them. And I have actually done this. So on my firewall, I've blacklisted certain countries where I noticed in the early days that devices were phoning home to, and I wasn't very happy about it. And so I actually blocked them. And it wasn't the software updates by the looks of it, it was just doing a phone home. So, with these advanced firewalls, you can actually do that. And I'll show you a little screenshot later on of my firewall where you can see network, where in parts of the world it's actually connecting to. And you should always check with your devices. Like I said, if you're deactivating firewalls temporarily, I hope, to just do troubleshooting, do a check periodically to make sure these things are still switched on. It's a golden rule in the security business. Open ports equals open doors. Ports that are open on your firewall, on your router, you might as well just open up the doors. Think about doors and windows into your house. It's the same concept at the end of the day. So when you've got a device on your home network that you think, I need to be able to connect to that while I'm out and about, so you could be overseas somewhere, it could be a camera or something, don't just open up a port on your firewall to get to it. I know a lot of these devices these days, like cameras and things, use cloud-based services, so you're not really routing, coming directly into your home network, you're going via a cloud service. But if you've got any of those devices where you need to directly connect to it, think about connecting to them using a VPN service. So these routers and things that you can buy that I was, talking about, they often have a VPN server on board. So take the time to get that set up and use that as a secure entry into your home network to connect to the devices if you really need to get to them. And do port scans. So if you do all this, do port scans. There's a well-known website called Shields Up from grc.com. If you use that utility Shields Up, it will do a scan of sort of the more common ports and to see if any of them are open. And hopefully you'll get a result like I always do, which is green, which means that you've passed the test and that there are no ports that are open that basically anybody could get to. Again, it's just another kind of security scan that you can do to make sure you're not exposed. And if one of your ports is open, you'll be absolutely shocked at the amount of attempts there are to connect through that port and put in like well-known usernames and passwords and things. There's not often people doing these scans to see if there are open ports, to try and compromise your network. It's computers that are doing the work on behalf of people. So opening up a port right now, within seconds, you will start to see traffic, as these bots and things are scanning and then trying to compromise your network. Keep your software up to date. This gets drummed into us a lot, but I can't emphasize this enough that, when you've got these devices on your home network, if there are patches and software updates available, do apply them. Often, they contain security updates. They might not be very specific about what those updates are, but often it's about patching things, knowing the vulnerabilities within that product. So keep it up to date, and as soon as you get a device, you purchase a device and install it on your home network, even if it says the button you click says check for updates and nothing comes up, go and check on the vendor's website to see, well, is there something that's been recently released? Because what you find is that they take time to roll these updates around, before your device will recognize that there is a firmware update available. And particularly if it's security updates, go and check, the website to see if they are something that you can apply sooner rather than later. Some vendors are quite lazy. They'll take, a few weeks to a month before it gets to your device, and better to kind of do it earlier than later, so you're more safe. I would always advise another kind of tip here around the domain name server. If you're using your ISP supplied router, you will, hard luck, in most of the time you'll typically be forced to use their DNS servers. And often there's no ability to change it at the router level. You'd have to change it if you wanted to override their DNS servers, you'd have to do it on a device level, which is so inconvenient. I don't like using DNS because I don't use the ISP equipment, I use my own. There are better DNS servers out there that can really help in your efforts to improve home network security. So there's Cloudflare as a good example. If you use 1.1.1.2, that can assist you by, not only probably improve performance in, doing lookups and things, but helping to prevent, malware and bad websites that are out there. In addition, if you've got children in the home, maybe you want to kind of restrict adult content. I personally use Quad9, so it's 9999 is the DNS server. And I've found it, and I've looked at some research on it, and I think it provides a much better level of security. I've given some examples there of preventing malware, phishing, spyware, botnets, and so on. And I just generally find it a faster, experience in terms of, when you're doing websites, looking at websites and things. So that's another benefit, folks, of having your own equipment, that you can, specify your own DNS servers and use something that will enhance security as well as speed, when you're surfing the web, as it were. Now, now we're out of lockdown, and we're having friends and family back into our homes, and if you think back before lockdown, when that happened, it's hugs and kisses, how are you? And then the next question is, what's your Wi-Fi password? We're also eager to keep, stay connected. when you have visitors in your home, regardless of how much you love them, I would always encourage you to segment your guests by using a guest Wi-Fi network in your household. And lots of these mesh networks and routers that you can buy, Wi-Fi routers you can buy, have that capability on there. And it's just about segmenting those Wi-Fi users from your main network, your core network. And what I want to think about is that if you have a friend that comes and stays overnight and they want to connect your laptop to your network, the one that you use with all of your devices on, and let's say that their device is infected with something because they've been looking at some dodgy website and downloaded some malware, the chances are that probably then you'll get infected. Your devices will get infected with it. So regardless of how close they are to you, just put them on a guest network and give them the password for that, and just so that you've got that segmentation. I have heard of friends that have their networks, the devices have been compromised because their friends came to stay and use the same network and they've got some malware. So it's easy enough, like I say, on these devices to set up, do it, and think about as well segmenting your your internet devices that you don't trust, stick them on the guest network. I have 2 access points at home. They're like commercial grade, and I have separate network for devices that I basically don't trust, and they can't get to my core network. Yes, we hear this a lot about changing passwords, but when you get a device into your home and it comes with credentials, where you have to sign on to maybe a web user interface or something that comes with it, or a cloud-based service, you should change the password and the username as well, preferably. So if it's connecting to the web user interface of that device, or it could be a protocol like Telnet or SSH, change it, change the username as well. Because if your network was compromised, these well-known default admin accounts and passwords could make the intruder's life much easier if you haven't changed them. So even if the factory password looks strong, change it, because the chances are the vendor has just got like 10 or 20 random passwords that look really, really strong. Change it to something else. Change your Wi-Fi key as well. Don't use the defaults that were shipped, even with your ISP supplied equipment. If you insist on using that, change it to something and periodically rotate it, maybe once every 6 months to a year. I know it's a pain, especially if you've got a lot of devices, but think about changing it, particularly if you've had guests into your home. You may have given it to a tradesman, they wanted to connect to your Wi-Fi network, rotate the password periodically. In the security stream over the last few days, we've heard a lot about MFA. Why are you not using it? You know who you are. Smart home devices, some vendors have improved security by adding 2-factor authentication. It's not there to look pretty, it's there to help protect you from your account and things being compromised, and anything that person wants to get to, the evil person to get to. So switch it on. Whatever it is, whether it's you're accessing Google services, Microsoft services, internet connected devices, if it supports it, please switch on 2-factor authentication. And think about some of these smart home devices. They actually connect to the cloud. You can use an app on your smartphone, on your tablet, and you're connecting to your device through the cloud. So use 2-factor authentication to add that, make life difficult for people to get to your devices. And always, of course, use a strong password. With these devices that you have, they often come with different services running. So the techies amongst you will, know about services like SSH, Telnet, all these different file sharing services. What I would say to you is, if you're not using them, why leave them on? Because think about what I said earlier on about doors being open to people. If the door is open to somebody, and they're untrustworthy, the chances are that they will probably come through that door and commit the act. So you need to, like I said, it's about layered security. Close those doors. So for example, on my NAS, I can open up services like SSH. There's Telnet on there. I don't use Telnet, by the way, anymore. All these different services for convenience for connecting computers to it, to back up data and things. But I'm not using SSH all the time. So until I really need it, until I need to use command shell, I switch it off. So think about, with these devices, turn it off. If you go into the configuration management options of these devices, you should be able to see it there. Untick them, leave them off until you need them, including things like remote support. Some of these devices enable the vendor, if you're getting into, you need enhanced support to be able to connect to your device, turn it off until it is needed. Turn it off until it is needed. Yes, some of these devices, of course, have web GUIs, as I mentioned. Yeah, I would recommend that you use HTTPS. Sometimes they're not on by default. So you're forced to use HTTP. That means the traffic is going across your network unencrypted. Use HTTPS just to add, that layer of encryption in case your network is compromised and someone could steal credentials and things. It just, with encryption makes life difficult. And also change ports as well. A lot of these devices come with standard, default, well-known ports, which hackers will look for. Change them. On all my devices, where I can do it, I have changed ports over to random, numbers. Again, it's trying to slow people down in their tracks. Use security features. So these devices, some of these devices come with some really good security features. Going back to what I was saying about these more advanced routers that are geared towards the consumer market, even these new mesh systems that have become very fashionable over the recent times, you probably find that they have some nice security features on, like I said, scanning for people trying to connect to your home network, or, for example, web reputation, so malicious websites that are well known about, as well as trying to prevent malicious people and things, protocols trying to cause havoc in your home network. Switch them on. Look to see, log on to those devices. Look at the firmware update history, see if these things have been added, look at the marketing material, see if it's there, switch them on. Don't, leave these things off. My device, I was saying I use Untangle, I've got most of the security features switched on there. I've done quite a bit of research, and when I first switched it on, yes, it creates sometimes noise, things, you'll get alerts and things, but it's about tuning at the end of the day, and kind of what is acceptable to you, and what you trust. So that noise does quieten down, but it's just a bit more comfort, should I say, that you've got these things actively scanning and trying to keep the bad people out. And finally, on that point around, sort of software updates and things, yeah, it goes without saying, don't just arbitrarily go and download things, that you don't trust. Do your homework. Do you really trust this website before you go and download some utility or something, or some firmware? So backing up, so we talked a bit about sort of some of the security, and we'll talk more about that, but we've heard horror stories about ransomware attacks that happen in the enterprise. It happens at home as well, folks. I was looking at some YouTube videos recently around people who have been subjected to ransomware attacks at home, and it goes without saying that the best thing that you can do to recover from that is to make sure that your data is backed up. So the rule of thumb is that you've got 3 copies of data, and preferably that you have a daily backup of your data. You have 2 copies of that data on 2 different backup media. So it could be that you've got a NAS, and it could be you use a cloud service, but as long as there's kind of 2 independent things, and that the other important thing is that you've got an off-site copy of that backup, or if you can't do that, an offline copy somewhere, that should you suffer a ransomware attack, that you've got something that you can recover from that is not connected to your network that could be compromised also. This is the trap that people fall into. They get a ransomware attack. They say, oh, it's okay, I'm backed up. But that backup device is connected to your network, whether it's via a PC or a NAS or something like that. And that probably has been compromised as well. So what I do is I back up every day. Make sure those backups are encrypted as well, folks, especially if you're using a cloud service. But once a month, what I do is I do a backup and version backup, by the way, and it's an offline hard drive, and I lock it away somewhere safe. And that is okay. If I was to suffer an attack, then I've got something to reliably restore from. But also think about this offline copies, that if something, God forbid, happened to your house, if there was a fire or something, or a flood, that you've still got it. So if you've got a relative or something that's living close by, or maybe they've got a NAS that you could connect to, that you could send your data off, or just use a cloud service, but make sure that that data is encrypted. And make sure that you periodically, just like we do in the enterprise, do a disaster recovery test. So it's all very well backing up things, taking all these precautions, but in the real world, how can you recover from it? So if you've got a backup, try and restore from it. And does it, on a test machine or something like that you've got at home, does it restore everything you'd expect? Because it does happen to us, believe me. So make sure you can recover. Yeah, I talked about this, segmenting devices. If your device, your router or your firewall supports this, segment things that you don't trust. Stick them on a guest network, create your own dedicated network for internet connected devices that you don't trust. It could be cameras, it could be voice assistants, televisions, whatever it is. If you don't trust the security, in it, and I would strongly urge you for those examples there, just to segment them off, just to keep them, completely separate. And anything that you trust, of course, you can just keep part of your main network. Could be, a PC, for example, that you're absolutely sure that you trust it, and that can be part of your main network. Something at the end of the day has to be part of your main network, so you can manage all this stuff. But what you'd be surprised at when you kind of invest in more advanced equipment in regards to firewalls is how chatty devices are. So using Untangle, for example, as the firewall solution here at home, I was really surprised at all the different sort of places it was connecting to. To my absolute horror, one of the devices was connecting to somewhere in China, and of course, it was because I could see this network map, in my firewall, that it was good visibility as to where things are going. And then I kind of said, why is it connecting over to southern Australia? So you see that little blue dot. That's one of the some devices on the network, and it was the DNS service that I was using at the time, which was 1.1.1.2. So that would explain that. So you need to know where your device is connecting to. They are extremely chatty. They are phoning home, to either provide data, like there's a very well-known set-top box company here in the UK that sends an awful lot of data back to their data center unencrypted. There was some write-ups on it on the website. So all your viewing habits, all that kind of stuff is just sent on. You might not think, who cares? But is there any other sensitive data in there, personally identifiable information that they're sending across, back to the data center unencrypted? So if you don't trust it, if you want, you don't trust certain countries, block it. If you've got that capability, block it. This question around some of these internet connected devices, do you use local or cloud service? My preference these days is if it does support local, so that you can contain it within your network, then just have the device connected locally. It could be sort of like, light switches, light bulbs, those kind of things, if you want to control them locally. Some people, of course, like the convenience when they're out and about, and that means you need to use a cloud service. My advice would be, if it supports local, use it, don't use the cloud, just a kind of a layer of defense. And if you really need to connect to it and it supports local connection, then just use a VPN service on your router to connect to it. Another good tip here is ad blocking software. A bit controversial, of course, if you are creating material for the likes of YouTube and so on. You're a content creator, because ads generate revenue for these folks. But the thing about ads is that they can introduce malware into your home network, and they can, in some cases, really slow down the performance of your devices and browsing experience. So I have a network layer ad blocker. I use a feature called Pi-hole that I'm running on a Raspberry Pi, 2 Raspberry Pis, that provides network layer ad blocking capability. There's another one as well called AdGuard Home. You can run that on like a Windows machine or something, or a Raspberry Pi, a Linux server. But it's providing sort of a layer of protection in regards to these ads across all of your devices. And when actually I've had visitors to my house in the past, it's a bit of a like, wow, our web experience is much faster, than it would be when we're at home, when you're greeted with all these ads and God knows what trackers and things that they're installing. So consider using that. It's good fun. It's a good fun little project to add things like this. If you've got someone at home, maybe a teenager that's interested in computing, give it to them as a project to set something like this up. It's good experience for them. Yeah, go with the password manager. So for all these devices, the internet connected devices that demand a password, even for all the other things like it's other things that you're using, your laptops and so on, use a password manager. Websites and things that you use. It has completely changed my life. I use one called I've forgotten what it's called now, Bit something, but it's a really good password manager. It's open source, and I can hand on my heart say that I have very, very strong passwords with MFA on a lot of them, and I don't even know the passwords, and they're very long passwords. But we've got to this stage now where you cannot get away without using a password manager. If you don't want to be one of those folks where your password is compromised and published somewhere, you need to use a password manager, and also use it with 2-factor authentication. Another piece of advice, and I know I'm rapidly running out of time, but do scan periodically for open Wi-Fi networks. So a lot of these internet connected devices, when you first set them up, they create their own Wi-Fi network, and they're often open networks, which means anybody can connect to them. I'd heard of a story where a light bulb has this capability, and the hacker managed to compromise the person's home network. Don't be one of those people. Just scan periodically, see if there's an open Wi-Fi network. You can often see, if the signal strength is really strong. It's probably because it's lost its connection to your main network, so therefore it kind of goes into a panic state in setup mode again and creates this open Wi-Fi network. So have a look for those. A lot of the the newer modern routers can do Wi-Fi scans for networks close by to you. Just have a look, see if it's something in your home that's gone rogue. Factory reset. If you sell on any devices, any IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, for goodness sakes, do a factory reset. Do it once, do it twice, to clear credentials, personally identifiable information from those devices before you stick it on a website where you can sell those on. You'll be amazed at what sensitive data is stored on some of those. Think about your router, for example. Credentials are stored in there. So do a secure erase, and I always do it twice, 3 times, just to be absolutely sure that it's it's reset. And look at the manufacturer's website as well for best practices. Finally, sort of in closing, as security professionals, we're always doing security assessments on corporates and things. Why not do one at home? Check, for example, that for your devices, is there new firmware available? Is there new security features that have been added that we should be exploiting? Do that, once every 6 months or so to see what there is. You could have misconfigured something, for example, and left it in place, like an open firewall. You've left some protocol on. Do these security health checks on those devices to make sure that everything is secure as you want it to be, and that it's running with the very latest firmware or software. And simply, folks, if you don't trust that device anymore, take it off your home network and sell it on. Or give it to somebody else, but with the government health warning that it might be insecure. But if you don't trust it, don't have it on your home network. I've put some best practices in there, by the way, folks, for good sort of security config settings that you should have at router level, firewall level. Some of these might look obvious to you, but it's just a little checklist of things that over the years I've sort of added to my list of things I must check for. Firmware, disable firewall, enable firewall, sorry, block ping, change the default username and password, don't use demilitarized zone, check for open ports. And for goodness sake, don't use these fancy features that come with some of these routers where you can plug in a USB device like a hard drive and turn your router into a NAS or a storage device. Your router is a security device. It's not really designed for doing storage features or media serving features. Buy a device that is geared up towards that, that's probably got some good security features to protect files and things. So disable all those kind of utilities. They're by the devices that are really designed for them. Activate logging and things. We say this in the corporate world. It gives you good insight as to what's going on, particularly if you're hacked. You've got like in some cases, a good trail there of what's been happening, as well as it's important for resolving issues that you might have on your network. And in closing, in the corporate world, security professionals are trying to do their bit to raise awareness about good security practices, good security hygiene. Why not do it at home? Do it to your friends and family. Pass on that knowledge that you've acquired, what is best practice. The number one thing in the security world is that security issues are caused by people. So do what you can to keep your friends and family safe. There is a really good sort of checklist on the the UK government cybersecurity awareness portal, which it is geared towards the likes of you and I as consumers. Like, for example, keep your apps up to date and use strong passwords, all those kind of things. But the more that we can pass this on, I think the better that we can, protect society, as it were, and our loved ones. So do that. So yeah, just like at home, just sort of like in the business world, sorry, good security at home is about, it's about taking a layered approach to building your defenses for your devices and to protect your friends and family. If anything to take away from today, just do your research before you buy a product. Make sure that you check to see if it's been compromised and that it's well supported in terms of software updates and things. And yeah, just spread enjoy the IoT revolution, all these smart devices. But my advice would be just do your research and do it securely where you can. And yeah. And with that, I'll open up to questions. I know I'm right out of time, Marcus. So thank you.
I'm actually late for chairing my next session. So thank you very much, Jamie, for a fantastic session. That was really useful, and it's been recorded. Maybe, Jamie, you could possibly put the slides up on the screen. But thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.